Hello, and welcome to our main subject for the National Dangerous Goods Awareness Day 2026. We're going to enlighten you as to the many rules and requirements that surround the shipment of dangerous goods as limited quantities. There are many myths perpetuated in our industry about limited quantities, and these have their root cause in key personnel receiving either poor training or no training at all. As always, let's begin with the basics to provide a firm foundation of knowledge upon which we can build the limited quantity rules.
Dangerous goods are chemicals. These are in the form of liquids, gases, or solids in either their pure substance form, manufactured products, or articles. All dangerous goods are chemicals that present a significant risk of harm, injury, damage, or loss during their transportation. Because of this significant risk, specific rules concerning their transport have been devised at international and regional level for all modes of transport. These rules are known as the transport codes. All consignors, so those that send the dangerous goods, and carriers, those that actually transport the dangerous goods, must apply these rules to ensure that safety at all stages is paramount. Dangerous goods are shipped in strong packages or means of containment. These will range in size depending on the quantity that needs to be shipped. Tanks will be used for bulk transport or anything over 3,000 kilos or litres. IBCs or large packages are used for loads between 450 kilos or litres to 3,000 kilos or litres. And single packages such as jerry cans, barrels or boxes for quantities below 450 kilos or litres. Limited quantity shipments deal with dangerous goods that are shipped in packages of 5 kilos or litres or less. This reduced size means that there is a corresponding reduced risk, but whether dangerous goods are offered at 100, 50, 25, 5 or even 1 kilo or litre, or even smaller than that at 500 millilitres, dangerous goods are still dangerous goods. Dangerous goods are divided into 9 hazard classes. Each of the classes focuses on the principal hazard. The hazard signifies the potential for causing harm, injury, damage or loss, but not the danger. The degree of danger is signified by the packing group. The packing group number identifies the degree of danger for the product or substance. Packing group 1 represents the highest dangers, packing group 2 represents medium dangers, and packing group 3 represents a low degree of danger. A packing group is assigned to dangerous goods, products and substances, but only where they are in the following classes. Class 3, flammable liquids. Class 4, flammable solids. Class 5.1, oxidizers. Class 6.1, toxic solids and liquids. And Class 8, corrosives. A general rule is that any dangerous goods substance, product or article that is identified as packing group 1 cannot be shipped as limited quantities. So what about the other classes? Class 1, explosives. Class 2, gases. Class 5.2, organic peroxides. Class 6.2, infectious substances. Class 7, radioactives. And Class 9, miscellaneous. Generally, these can't be shipped as limited quantities, but it is best to check as there are some products and substances that can be shipped as limited quantities. For example, lithium-ion and lithium metal cells and batteries cannot be shipped as limited quantities. So let's take a second and say that again. Lithium-ion and lithium metal cells and batteries cannot be shipped as limited quantities. However, UN 3082, environmentally hazardous substance liquid NOS, can be shipped as LQ. In this case, you have 2 separate dangerous goods belonging to the same class where one can be shipped as limited quantities and one cannot. The easiest way to know is to have a dangerous goods competent person identify your dangerous goods and check them against the lists in the respective transport codes. In each code, the permission to use limited quantities is clearly displayed. Now that we know that our dangerous goods can be shipped as limited quantities, we need to know what that actually entails.
The provisions of limited quantity shipments mean that the full transport risk controls of the transport code do not need to be applied. but some do. This is an important statement, as there are some out there who believe that dangerous goods as limited quantities are exempt from the transport codes. They are not exempt. The conditions of transport have been relaxed to reflect the reduced risk that small-sized packages present. Full application of the transport code will see dangerous goods formally identified and have that identification displayed on the package and an accompanying transport document. The dangerous goods would have to be packed in strong UN-approved packaging as directed by the transport code. That packaging has to be marked and labelled so as to warn everyone else in the transport chain as to what the hazards are within the package or container. Limited quantity shipments have some of these controls relaxed. We still have to formally identify the dangerous goods, but we don't need to write this on the package, or, in the case of road shipments, we don't need a transport document. But we will come back to this aspect later in the session. Strong packaging is still required, but for road and sea shipments, it doesn't have to be UN-approved packages. We will learn what air shipments require later in the session. A mark does need to be displayed on the package to identify the shipment as limited quantities, but air will still require the other hazard labels and identification marks to be applied. The packing and marking of limited quantity shipments are the responsibility of the consignor. The consignor is usually the manufacturer or the business or undertaking that is requiring the dangerous goods to be transported. Here's another of our committee members to explain more about the packaging.
Limited quantity shipments can only be shipped in two types of packaging: combination packaging or shrink-wrapped trays. Let's look at the first. A combination package is in two parts: an inner package, which contains the dangerous goods substance or products, and outer package. The inner package must not exceed the quantity that is identified within the dangerous goods lists in the transport code, with the identifying entry for that dangerous goods substance or product. How much can you carry in one outer package? That depends on the weight of all the packages, as the rule states that each combination package must not exceed 30 kilograms gross. For example, if the maximum quantity for your product is shown as 1 litre in the dangerous goods list, then you can only safely put 25 of these 1 litre packages into an outer package. The whole combination package must not exceed 30 kilograms. For a shrink-wrapped tray, the inner packages are held within a tray and a protective covering of shrink wrap is applied over the inner packages and their base. Shrink-wrap trays are not as sturdy or protective as a combination package, and so a further restriction is applied in that gross weight of a shrink-wrap tray and inner packages must not exceed 20 kilograms. The combination package and shrink-wrap trays does not need to use UN-approved packaging, but they must meet the general packaging requirements in that they must be of good quality, that is strong enough to withstand the shocks and loading normally encountered during carriage, including transshipment, loading, unloading, and for manual or mechanical handling.
If you can meet all of these conditions, then you can progress to the next requirement of limited quantities, the marking of such packages. But before we do that, let's consider the strength aspect of some packages that consignors choose to use for limited quantities. Any packages that are damaged by the usual shocks and loadings encountered in transport are not sufficient and will require to be repackaged at additional expense. So what are these shocks and loadings? In addition, you have stacking forces and loading and unloading forces. Although not intentional, your packages undergo a wide range of forces applied to them. A thin cardboard box is not going to be suitable. Remember, it is the consignor's responsibility to ensure that the limited quantities are packed in the appropriate strong packaging. Once packed, we need to warn others as to the contents. Here is BADGP committee member Ken Bicknell to explain the LQ mark.
The LQ mark. We identify the dangerous goods hazards by using a diamond-shaped mark. These labels are applied to the outer surface of the package to warn all of those working with or near the package as to the nature of the specific dangerous goods hazards contained within. A diamond-shaped mark is used to identify packages that contain dangerous goods packaged as limited quantities, Note that I said the word mark and not label. The only labels in the road and sea transport codes are the hazard class labels. Everything else is either a mark, a placard, or a plate. So we use the limited quantity mark. We only use one of them, and the rules are: it must be clearly displayed. It must be securely affixed. It must be orientated in a diamond shape relative to the dimensions of the package. You cannot square fit it onto the box. The mark must be weatherproof, and in the case of sending it by sea transport, the mark must be capable of remaining on the package for a period of 3 months seawater immersion. You cannot place other transport marks over the LQ mark. You cannot write in the white or central section of the LQ mark, and you cannot overlap or otherwise obscure the LQ mark. So, one mark clearly displayed, orientated as a diamond, and securely affixed to the package.
Thanks, Ken. Our limited quantity package is now ready for the next phase of its journey. We shall now select a transport route which will vary to include the sea and air transport phases. For road, we will send the item from Leeds to Birmingham. This is a UK mainland road journey. For road and sea, we will send this from Leeds to Belfast. This is a UK island destination. For road and air, we will send this shipment from Leeds to Paris. But what are we sending? Well, we are sending 4 1-litre bottles of ethanol to laboratories. One in Birmingham, one in Belfast, the other in Paris. We need to identify the ethanol, and this is relatively easy to do as it has its own UN number, UN 1170. Ethanol is a flammable liquid and therefore is classified into Class 3 flammable liquids. Its flash point is 24 degrees Celsius, and this makes it packing group 2. When we check the transport manuals, we note that this substance can be transported in limited quantities. ADR and IMDG permit a maximum quantity per inner package of 5 litres. Our shipment is 4 bottles, each bottle containing 1 litre of ethanol. Therefore, the maximum value has not been exceeded. We are using a combination package, and I have proof from my packaging supplier that the box is sufficiently strong enough to withstand the normal shocks and loadings from transport. I have placed one LQ mark on one of the vertical sides of the box and have ensured that it is clearly visible and securely affixed. The next thing to do is to notify the carrier of what I'm carrying. We do this using identification details. As I state, collect one package containing 4 1-litre bottles of UN 1170 ethanol, 3 packing group 2, shipped as limited quantities. For the road shipment from Leeds to Birmingham, I do not need to produce a dangerous goods transport document and can be shipped without one, and the quantity of the dangerous goods do not need to be used in the ADR calculations to determine whether they need to send an ADR driver and a vehicle to collect and deliver this load. That's good for road, but what about the sea journey? Here's Dan Lee from our BADGP committee to explain how limited quantities are transported by sea.
There's good news and bad news for limited quantity shipments by sea. The good news is that the IMDG, International Maritime Dangerous Goods by Sea Transport Code, mirrors many of the ADR, DG by road, arrangements. Therefore, the permitted maximum quantities for the inner packagings in our shipments are the same as ADR, 5 litres. IMDG permits the use of combination packages and the use of the LQ mark. The bad news is that all dangerous goods must be declared on a signed dangerous goods transport document. Shipping lines have learned not to accept any types of dangerous goods, whether shipped as LQ or shipped under an exemption. They know that once something is identified as dangerous goods, it remains dangerous goods, and they need to be aware of it whilst it's on board their ship. Now, you should use the standard template of a dangerous goods transport document that is provided within both ADR and the IMDG transport codes. The completion of it is pretty straightforward until you get to the description element. Now, in the description element, you enter the identification details of the substance starting with its UN number first. Therefore, it would be UN 1170 ethanol class 3 packing group 2, and then we put in parenthesis or brackets if you prefer its flash point, which is 20 degrees C closed cup. Then you enter the package description, 4 times 1 litre bottles in an outer cardboard box, shipped as limited quantities. Now, some shipping lines will ask that you provide the EMS, or the emergency schedule code, after the flash point, and this can be obtained from the UN 1170 entry within the IMDG dangerous goods list. So this additional information is stated as UN 1170 ethanol class 3 packing group 2 flash point 20 degrees C Celsius closed cup, EMS, which is FESD, 4 times 1 litre bottles in an outer cardboard box, shipped as limited quantities. Now, where the item is placed on board the ship, this is identified by the allocation of a stowage code. Now, for limited quantity shipments, the stowage code is A, which means on or below deck. And this needs to be stated as thus: UN 1170 class 3 packing group 2 flash point 20 degrees C Celsius closed cup, EMS FESD stowage code A, 4 times 1 litre bottles in an outer cardboard box, shipped as limited quantities. Now, shipping lines are mindful that some dangerous goods cannot be stored next to other dangerous goods, so they apply strong segregation measures to keep chemicals that are known to react with each other apart. Now, fortunately, substances shipped as limited quantities are exempt from the segregation requirement. Now let's get into the signing of the transport document. Now, down at the bottom right of the document you have an area where the dangerous goods competent person signs to state that the shipment is offered in a safe condition and in full accordance with the requirements of the IMDG code. What is a dangerous goods competent person for IMDG? Well, this is a person that has passed a training course on that subject and is in possession of a training certificate. Your DGSA, your Dangerous Goods Safety Advisor, should also have this training certificate. As with all aspects of dangerous goods shipments, you must always consult with a dangerous goods qualified and competent person before you send it for shipping. There are many additional rules that could be applied to other items shipped as limited quantities, so please don't take this example as being typical of what you need to do if your product is not UN 1170 ethanol.
Thanks, Dan. The process that you've explained would be for any sea journey that the UN 1170 ethanol would make. So today it's Belfast, and tomorrow it may be New York. The transport document would be the same in the descriptive information box. Now let's move on to the air shipment journey. We are going from Leeds to Paris. So this would entail a road journey from Leeds to East Midlands Airport, where it will be unloaded, checked, and then loaded onto a cargo aircraft flying to Paris overnight, where it will then be loaded onto a French lorry for conveyance by road to its final destination. BADGP committee member John O'Shea takes us through the air transport requirements.
Air transport has strict rules that govern the transport of all dangerous goods, and these rules are seldom relaxed for limited quantity shipments. Often the quantity that you are permitted to transport as limited quantities is reduced. This could be the inner package quantity or the overall quantity for the whole package. For UN 1170 ethanol, packing group 2, the outer package quantity limit for limited quantity shipments per section 4 of the IATA Dangerous Goods by Air regulations, the DGR, in the so-called blue pages, shows 1 litre. So far so good. Now for the package. In the IATA DGR, the packing instructions are found in section 5, the yellow pages section. The packing instruction number is referenced alongside the UN number in section 4 of the IATA DGR. We can see that the packing instructions for UN 1170 ethanol, packing group 2, is Y341. This directs us to packing instruction Y341 in the yellow pages section. The inclusion of the letter Y in the packing instruction number is important for the market requirements, as we shall see later. The IATA packing instructions are often more detailed than their sea and road counterparts. For this shipment, we can see we are directed to use the following package. Good quality packaging that meets the type of packagings that are specified for use in Section 6 of the IATA DGR. For this ethanol shipment, we do not need to use the more expensive UN-approved packaging. The packaging we do use, however, must be capable of withstanding a drop test of 1.2 meters, passing a 24-hour stacking test, and the inner packages must be capable of passing a pressure differential test. You can request this type of package from your normal packing supplier, but make sure you get a copy of the packing test certificate to prove that the package meets these test requirements. The next part of packing instruction 341 states that the maximum content permitted in each inner packaging. 3 types of inner packagings are available: glass, metal or plastic. But for each type of inner, a maximum quantity of 0.5 litres is permitted. Additionally, it states that the total quantity of each package must not exceed 1 litre. This would mean that for each package, we could have 2.0.5 litre inner packagings within an outer package. Here's the problem. Our original inner packagings that are being sent by road and sea are 1 litre, but the air transport rules only permit 0.5 litres. So what do? An easy solution is to send the package by road and sea to Paris. But for this example's sake, let's say that we can't do that, as our client wants it to go by air. Therefore, we would have to repack the inner packages so that they now conform to the maximum inner packaging quantity limits of 0.5 litres. We would then have to pack 2 of those inner packagings to 1 outer packaging, making 1 litre. We would need 4 of those packages. That's an additional cost in terms of product, package, labels, marks and time. To continue with the example, let's say that we have done that and our packages are now fully in compliance to the required packing instruction. Once we have packed the items, we must now mark and label the package. IATA does not like the ambiguity of road and sea limited quantity mark, as it does not accurately reflect the hazards contained within the package. Therefore, the standard marking and labelling requirements for a standard shipment of UN 1170 ethanol is applied, and the air limited quantity mark is added. Thus, UN 1170 ethanol is marked and labelled as ethanol, UN 1170, net quantity 4 litres, 1 times class 3 flammable liquid label, 1 times limited quantity mark, 2 times orientation marks, as the product is a liquid dangerous goods and needs to be kept upright. Now for the documentation. IATA DGR requires you to use their dangerous goods document template. This is commonly referred to as a DGD. The document is pretty self-explanatory until we get to the description of the products to be shipped section. Note that there is a column for each of the main components. In the UN number column, despite your intuition, you still have to prefix the 4-digit number with the letters UN. You can't just write the 4 numbers in the UN column. The proper shipping name is the name that is provided for the chemical alongside the UN number entry in the dangerous goods list. Ours for this shipment is ethanol. Next, you have the class or classes column. We only have 1 class for ethanol, class 3. And next is the packing group column. Here we can just write the applicable packing group in Roman numerals. The next column is where many shippers slip up, describing the package and the quantity we would write. For the ethanol shipment, 4 fibrable boxes times 1 litre. The DGG will require a signature, and this is performed by a DG competent person, someone who has been on the approved training course and qualified in dangerous goods by air. Transporting dangerous goods by air involves additional time, effort and cost to ensure that the shipment fully conforms to the specific requirements of the air cargo dangerous goods regulations. A release of any dangerous goods in the cargo hold of an aircraft flying at 30,000 feet can have catastrophic consequences.
Thanks for that. Now time for a summary. We have seen that dangerous goods shipped as limited quantities are not exempt from the dangerous goods codes. For road and sea, some of the strict risk controls are relaxed so that the shipments are not encumbered with expensive dangerous goods packaging and hazard class labels. For IATA, we still have to use the expensive packaging and the hazard class labels. We have seen that by road for UK mainland shipments, we don't need a transport document to accompany the load, but for sea and air we do. And we have also learned that you will need the advice and services of a qualified DG competent person to ensure that your limited quantity shipments are presented in the correct, safe state for transportation anywhere in the UK and the world. Don't forget to access our limited quantities posters for your workplace from the National Dangerous Goods Awareness Day website, www.dgawarenessday.com. These are free to use, and together with our posters from our previous National Dangerous Goods Awareness Days, build into an impressive range of posters that keep the dangerous goods theme and messages alive on your workplace notice boards. There are also plenty of instructional films for you to view and use in your own training sessions or workplace toolbox talks. And these are provided by the organisers and contributors to the event, the British Association of Dangerous Goods Professionals. Please check out their YouTube channel to access their range of films. Now is a good time to hand you back to our host for the event, Les Richings, so that our panel of experts can begin to answer any questions that you may have posted.